Hello everyone and welcome to my kingdom. In today's video, I'm going to be covering filtration. When it comes to fish tanks, there are a few different methods of filtration and some work better than others and some work better in certain situations. So some of you might know all of these filters and more, and some of you might only know a few of them, and that's totally okay. I just want to cover everything to educate you guys so you can choose the best filter for you. I'm going to be going over 6 types of filters that I have listed. There may be more than I even know, but these are the more common ones that I have heard of. I will be going over hang-on back filters, canister filters, internal filters, sponge filters, sumps, and undergravel filters. So I'll be explaining a little bit about each filter and going over some pros and cons that I know about. The first filter I'll be talking about is the hang-on back filter. I would say this is the most common filter you see out there because it is very functional and it's easy to use. It's sometimes abbreviated as HOB, which you can also say hob. It's a compartment and it hangs off the back. So there will be a tube that runs into your aquarium. That's where the pump takes the water. It'll run itself through the pump, then it'll run the water through the media, which is in a separate chamber it's usually held, and then it'll release the water back into the tank. Filters are very convenient because they're super easy to clean, easy to access. Some have adjustable flow, and usually you'll be able to just pull the media out, rinse what you need, change what you need, and put it right back in without moving the filter. You can, but you do not have to. So that's what makes it so convenient, pretty simple. It works very well, and I would say it's pretty beginner friendly. They say the bad thing about it is that some people don't like to see their filter, and it does take up some space on the side or in the back of your tank. And they don't always come in the most compact of sizes, so you do need to make space for them. Second is a canister filter. I don't have one currently running, but I still have mine with me. So a canister filter is gonna look like this, and what is very good about canister filters is you can keep a lot of media in them. So with canister filters, you normally put it on the side or under your tank, and I'll show you here. There's a inflow and outflow. Water comes in one way, goes through the entire chamber, and then out the other way. And this is an Eheim Classic. Not all canister filters are going to be the same, but usually you have the pump on top, and inside the filter is going to be your media. So this one comes with a separate basket. And what a lot of people like about canister filters is you can put a lot of media for a smaller body of water. Of course, they come in different sizes too, so this is, I would say, medium for a canister filter. And then you have the ones that could filter tanks that are up to hundreds of gallons. Again, you could fit a lot of media for what you need inside. Like, you can connect this to a 5, 10, 15, 20 gallon tank, and it's just a really good amount of beneficial bacteria. What I don't like about canister filters, and I would say it's fairly annoying, is when you need to clean them, you have to disconnect them. And thankfully the Eheim has a disconnector where you can block the water from coming and take the filter out separately. But regardless of that convenience, you have to disassemble and clean everything in it. And a lot of the time, it lasts so long that it gets like really nasty in here because you put it off. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with the brown sludge that happens when you clean out your canister filters. I would say one more annoying thing might be, there's a word for it, starting your filter again. Priming your filter, I believe. So when you restart your filter or just start it in general, a lot of canister filters need all of the air out to function. When I tell you that I have tried sucking air out myself, using a turkey baster, tilting the filter, some filters are just so hard to prime, and it is a pain in the butt. Some people even like take to thinking their filters are broken, but a lot of the time it's just annoying to prime. The best method, I would say, is filling it with as much water as you can before closing it up again, and then tilting the filter to make sure the air goes out immediately so it does not cycle inside the canister. But overall, the filter is hidden because you're not putting it in the tank or on the tank, and a lot of the time you can use clear tubing and lily pipes to get the aesthetics that you want with them. Number 3 are internal filters, and this is another self-explanatory one. It's basically just a filter that's inside your tank. So this is an example of an internal filter that I have. It is a sponge filter connected to a power head. This is one I put together myself, but usually if you buy an internal filter, it'll come with one piece. There's usually a section that you can disconnect and it'll have media in there. Usually it's just a sponge and some biomedia. I would say a pro to these ones, I guess everything is inside your tank. They do offer very good flow because the power head is directly in the water circulating it. However, they do clog up fairly fast just because it is taking all the debris in there. You'll see the flow slow down a lot more than other filters, and it does take a good portion of your tank inside the tank. You can hide it behind some hardscape or some plants, but it's still going to be in there. Number 4 is the sponge filter. It is one of my favorite filters just because it's worked very well for what I need. If I could break it down to how it works, it is a sponge and the center of it is hollow. There's a mechanism inside that connects to a tube which you connect to airline. You see how they're working here, but it doesn't necessarily make sense unless you kind of put one together or know specifically how they work. I'm just gonna try to cover it really fast, but basically the air goes in through the tubing, rises up through the plastic cylinder, so it creates a suction bringing water up, and that's what's bringing it through the sponge and keeping that circulation. I could honestly go on for days about sponge filters, but I'm just gonna try to keep it quick so that you guys don't get a mouthful about sponges. Pros about sponges: they hold a ton of beneficial bacteria. You can connect multiple sponges to one air pump, and they also provide aeration for your tank. So not only is it filtering, it's also bubbling, which is breaking the surface and adding oxygen to your water. So just a side tip, when you run CO2, you generally don't use sponge filters because you want more CO2 content than oxygen. So that is one main thing. Also is when you buy a sponge filter, it normally doesn't come with all the parts that you need to start it like the other filters do. So normally when you purchase a sponge, you also need air line and an air pump separately. Expanding on how I was saying you can run multiple sponges, so pretty much you can split up your air line with the larger pump and just like run. I've ran about 8 tanks on one air pump, but it did have 2 valves. But that's still 4 filters on one air pump, and it was also a bubbler just in case you also like to run that on your fish tank. And number 5 is a sump. You usually don't see this in freshwater. It's typically used with saltwater. When you see it in freshwater, it's usually for very big tanks just because they want the space for the filtration and media that they need to actually filter that volume of water. So what a sump is, it's basically an entire tank ran below your tank. So the water will either overflow or be ran into the sump and returned from a pump back into the tank. The benefits of the sump is, again, it has a lot of space. You can put a ton of bacteria, more filtration steps. It also oxygenates the water, and I suppose it's actually easier access to clean your filtration too. Say a negative about a sump is it does take up a lot of space. Normally when you see it under the cabinet, it's taking up the majority of under the cabinet, but other than that, they're also fairly beneficial. And number 6 is the undergravel filter. I feel like these filters are a little controversial just because some people will say they are outdated and some people will say they work for a lot of things that people want to achieve today. So I don't have, and I've never used an undergravel filter, but it is similar in the sponge filter to where it uses air to create suction. The difference is that the undergravel filter is undergravel. It's normally like a large rectangular square flat plate that you place in the tank, and then you put your substrate over it, and it'll have a longer tube on one corner, and basically it brings the water through your gravel into the plate and out of the tube. I've never had the urge to use it because I only do planted tanks, and there wouldn't necessarily be like a proper way to clean it, because if you wanted to take it out, you would have to remove all of your substrate, which is something you don't do in planted tank aquarium. So that's the main point. Everyone's saying like, why would you put it under your gravel? You'd have to take you'd pretty much have to take your entire tank apart to get your filter out. But for some people, say in terms of achieving a specific buffered quality water, so if you're keeping Caridina shrimp, some people would argue that it draws the water through the substrate and buffers it at a better capacity than just having the water sit on top of your aqua soil in the tank. Ooh, another con about the sponge filter is that it makes more noise than the rest. I suppose the under gravel would do that as well if it's ran with an air pump. Just the bubbling, some people don't like it, some people enjoy it. But regardless, any filter with electrical is going to have at least a hum to it. So you hear all of them, but you hear some of them more than the others. I believe I covered everything I wanted to about filtration. I'm sure there are other methods that I have not heard of, but these are the main ones that I know of. So pretty much some filters are going to work better for you than it does for others, and some filters you'll just prefer over others. I don't necessarily have a favorite filter. It's pretty much just situational and what works best at that time. So thank you so much for your time. If you did learn anything or enjoy the video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions about any of these, leave them in the comments and I will do my best to get back to them with what I know. And until next time, bye everyone.